Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic with Colin McLeod. This is such an exciting episode because I, just like you probably, have seen Colin McLeod in so many different places. I've seen him on TV in so many different ways, Fool Us on America's Got Talent, but I've also seen him in person performing The Illusionist. He was performing in Niagara Falls. He's performed in so many of the biggest stages, and he is an incredible mentalist with not only a lot of thoughts about modern mentalism, but a lot of thoughts about the journey, which, as you know, is something that I am completely obsessed with. And he's somebody who has really done it all. He's got a show with Shin Lim in Vegas. He's been on AGT. He's been on the biggest stages ever. He is a huge name, busier than ever. And he puts on amazing, amazing shows. He does incredible mentalism. And in this episode, I try to unpack exactly how he does that and how you can do the same thing. Here's a couple things that you're going to learn. The first thing you're going to learn is about timing, when you should make an effort in your magic business to go hard and get on TV and when you should not. We talk about exactly what to do to get good and how to do it quickly rather than doing it slowly and taking way too long. And number 3, we talk about what makes for great mentalism in 2021. This was an incredible episode. Colin was incredibly generous, and you're going to love it as much as I did. Here it is, a wonderful conversation with the one and only Colin McLeod. Colin, how are you?
I am very well, sir. How are you?
I am doing well, and I think you're being modest. You said you're doing well, but I think you're doing tired or busy. It sounds like you got so much going on right now that I caught you with just a breath.
I know. I'm in Vegas, and like Copperfield, he does like 3 shows a day, and everything else he does. And I'm like, how do you do this? Because like, it is a gauntlet, but no, things are good, man. Things are busy. Lots of exciting things happening. So just trying to keep on top of all of it. And, as you know, we're in the last quarter of the year, and it's this last quarter that as performers tends to be the busiest. So yeah, I'm just really gearing up for all of that ahead. And, trying to, like I said, keep on top of it.
I love to hear that. And, it's funny. I think people thought that as the pandemic went away, it would be either virtual or live, and no one suspected that we would have both and twice as much to do and twice as much going on. So I think we'll eventually get back to this incredible place that we are right now. But I would love to zoom all the way back because I think you have led a magic career that a lot of magicians would wish, to be on big stages, to be on big television and create awesome magic that people have seen all over the world. So let's figure out how you did that. Let's get all the way back to the very beginning. How did you get started in magic and mentalism?
So I was never really interested in magic. I got the Paul Daniels magic kit when I was like 6 or 7, but it was for Christmas. My cousin Karen, she learned all the tricks first and showed them to the family. Classic Karen move. So naturally I hated Karen more and magic even more. But I loved hypnotism. I loved as a kid science and understanding how stuff worked and taking things apart and putting it back together. Really just problem solving, puzzle solving. And then saw Paul McKenna on TV and thought hypnotism is amazing. I want to learn how to do that. Read books on it when I was like 9 or 10. And obviously I was too young to really pull off a full hypnosis show at the age of 9. But the suggestibility tests all worked for my teachers and friends. So that was really interesting and fascinating to me. And then when I went to high school, discovered mentalism. I thought this stuff must be shit. People will never believe this. Tried it and people were blown away. But yeah, I think the bug really bit when I went to university and started going and watching and then eventually performing lots of comedy and stand-up comedy. And that was always my first love as a kid. And like I said, they're understanding how stuff worked, really dissecting comedy and trying to work out why stuff was funny. That's really where the passion came from, was like that love of comedy. And that was the big thing for me as a kid. And then eventually just clicking it all together. And here I am now.
So there's a couple things I want to unpack there. The first is, you said you were not really pumped about magic. And I assume that the temptation of the world of magic is something that you have obviously fought against. I call it temptation, unless you hate it. But, it's easy to include so much magic in things, and you don't. You choose not to. Is there a reason, or not all across the board, but just in general, I would love to know how you feel and how that's kind of maintained about your views on magic. Is there something about it that rubs you the wrong way, or is it just, one half of the coin that you don't like?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that rubs me the wrong way about magic is how much theft there is, knowingly or unknowingly, that people just take stuff, other ideas from people. And there's, like, in the comedy world, that would just never happen, right? In comedy, you have to write your own stuff. In magic, it feels like someone believes if they own the trick, if they bought the product, they have the right to any presentation that they see someone else do with that. And that, in my mind, is bullshit. I don't think that should be the case ever. I think there's a responsibility as a performer to, yeah, if you buy something, you're buying the method, but you're not buying everyone else's hard work to do that trick. So for me, that's what I don't like about magic, and that puts me off a lot of magic. But yeah, I think all the mentalism I do, here's the thing, like, if people mix good magic and good mentalism, then they're, I think, in a much better position, because they can blow people away visually, cerebrally, emotionally, and I think it's, way more to impact people with. I've only ever stuck with mentalism because it ties in with the full Sherlock Holmes theme and vibe that I have established for myself over the years. So it wouldn't make sense for Sherlock Holmes to perhaps do a card trick unless it was in the narrative of, like, talking about how the card trick actually worked as well. But I mean, I've done a lot of pickpocketing stuff in my shows. Anything Sherlock can do, I've, dabbled in it. And I don't shy away from it. I've taken magic methods and made them very Sherlock-esque methods without the audience knowing that that's what I've done. Like when magicians saw me do my mentalism version of ring flight. I mean, like, it's pretty rare for a mentalist to do ring flight, but when you find a mentalism take on it, So yeah, I love twisting stuff, but really what it comes down to for me is, again, comedy. I love just being there with an audience, connecting with nothing but a microphone. So for me, the presentations really come down to how much can I really connect with and impact an audience without really hiding behind anything. Because I think a lot of the time magicians hide behind the tricks and they use it as a barrier rather than as a bridge, So I feel like any magic or mentalism I have done, I've tried to make it as much about me and the people interacting as possible so that I can glean as many good quality interaction moments with me and them to create like a really raw, true experience. And that's the other thing. With comedy, I feel like it's way more authentic than the tricks in magic, because obviously with magic, you're trying to connect through lies and deception, whereas comedy, you're trying to connect through apparent truths and sharing, of yourself with people and that authenticity. Whereas in magic, people want to pretend to be like some kind of god, and you can tell that it's all lies. And I feel that there's so many social dynamics that jar with real people in real life when you try and go down that route, that I feel like for me, what's really helped is just my approach, that it took me a while to like discover how to be me in front of an audience. But yeah, finding that and being my real self really then helps them buy into me, and as a result, buy into what it is I am sharing with them.
I think there's a couple things you said that I really love, particularly, spending that genuine time with people on stage and what the easiest way to do it is. And also, I think you put it, quite eloquently, that there's a lot of things related to magic that are weird socially or social dynamic wise, and sometimes that rubs people the wrong way. One thing I'd love to talk about here, because you spoke a bit about comedy, is I'd love to talk about those early days in comedy. And to give you a little bit of context about what specifically, a common trait that keeps coming up in this podcast is people that are really good, spent an early chunk of their careers basically being overworked and underpaid, and getting their reps in an outrageous amount, whether that's like working at a magic shop or whether that's doing hours of restaurant magic, whatever the case may be. And it's interesting to hear, and maybe I'm mishearing this, but to hear that maybe you got those reps in a comedy environment and not maybe in a mentalism environment. Is that right? Can you talk a bit about that?
Yes. So there's a few things. So yes, for comedy, I mean, I think that was like the biggest thing with regards to learning the importance of writing my own scripts and ideas for connecting with people. I think there's a real risk or flaw in magic where people watch a trick and they perform it the way that they saw it presented, like, for the most part. And I get it. It's because the tricks sometimes are really hard to learn. So like when you put all the time and effort into learning the mechanics of it, maybe you don't think so much about the way that you're going to connect with people. And in that moment, the survival instinct kicks in and you just go, oh, wait, what did they do? Yeah, I'll do that. Whereas I've come at all of this from a completely different way, which is I always write the scripts and the stories first, and then I find the tricks later that I want to insert as the mechanism or the metaphor to explore that genre or that field or whatever the topic is that I want to dissect with an audience. So yeah, in comedy, yeah, that was getting up at open mics, doing 5 minutes, dying and learning how to die a little less every time, and then having my 10 minutes that was solid, then 20, then, and then doing all of that. But then also finding ways to tie mentalism into that in a way that it didn't jar with the night. Because in the beginning, when I would try and do comedy and then end on like mentalism, the audience were like, wait, what's this shit? This is not what is, and it really didn't work. And it was like, why is this such a big shift? And the way that I was entering, leading into the effect was so super important, so important. And so that it didn't jar with them. But really my licks from mentalism came from a venue in Glasgow called Wild Cabaret, which, as the name suggests, it is cabaret and it's Glasgow. So it is inevitably wild because people were like in there just like drinking and being served food, coming in at different times. I had 25 minutes on that stage every night. This is like a rowdy drunk audience who are ordering drinks the full time. Every other act is visual, like acrobatics and aerial and all like amazing. And there I am talking and not visual stuff, like cerebral stuff, having to make them think. And that is the place where basically the 5 routines that have taken me around the world, the 5 main routines, are the 5 routines that I perfected in that environment to grab the audience, to hold their attention, to make them want to watch, care, listen, get involved. And every main lesson I have learned came out of performing in that venue. And when I eventually got those routines nailed in that environment, like I felt like bulletproof. You could that was like the toughest. Everything was against you in there. And when I had everything fine-tuned in there, like when I turned up for a corporate gig, it was like I was flying because it was so much easier than that. So I feel like having that venue, and going in there and, somewhere that I know a lot of people talk about it, but somewhere you can go to die and not to be bad, but obviously you want to learn. Here's the thing. If you're turning up to those and you're shit to begin with, I'd expect that because that is tough. But if you're still in that same position a month later, then you're not learning from it or improving or taking new risks or adapting or evolving in the way that you should be. And I think, I'm all for people dying, but then come off stage and work out, why did it not work? What do I learn from it? How do I improve it? How do I fix it? And then go back and implement those changes and allow it to grow. And I am like a walking, talking example of just that, turning up on day one and being dreadful and then going, right, how do I ensure that never happens that badly again? And then just going back and working on it and learning so much. I mean, about the way that I would deliver lines, the way that I walked on stage, the way that I picked people, did I have them stay in the audience, up on stage? How do I use all of those dynamics to ensure that I get the most for myself and ultimately then for the audience out of this experience as possible?
It's awesome you talking about that cabaret and basically you building a lot of the magic that you even do to this day, or a lot of the stuff that took you through your career there. It's almost validating, that for me, that in my toughest experiences is when I created my best stuff, and not all that much since then, and sometimes I, bag on myself about how poorly I can create during the easy times and how easy I can create during the incredible difficult times. So certainly that makes me feel a little bit better, but it also makes me think of 2 things. The first is, you mentioned this idea of, you have to actually be getting better when you're going out there and dying. And it reminds me of, we talk about this 10,000 hour rule, but my mother has been driving a car for 10,000 hours and she is not a pro. And that's because there's not been all this, effective coaching or advice or self-inspection or any of that stuff that needs to actually make your things better. But the second thing, which I kind of missed when I was saying magicians being overworked and underpaid, is that it being a tough audience actually really makes a big difference. If not initially, but not fooling yourself into just performing for your friends and family who are going to smile and be nice to you. If they are drunk, if it is a big open space that's not meant for a performer like you, if it is, whatever the case may be, and you have to learn to work against it, that is where you actually grow those muscles, not just by putting your reps in. It's by it being in a tough environment.
Yeah, no, 100%. When you can push yourself to the extremes and survive those, like I said, anything else is going to be a breeze. And it does then mean that, when we're on the Mirage stage and there's 1,300 people there and something really awkward happens or someone really drunk says something that's really inappropriate, I've been through all this. I know what to say. I know how to respond. I know how to keep a hold of the reins and not let it turn into a shit show. Like, I've done all those gigs, and thanks to those gigs, everything else, is a blessing. And yeah, I'm now just ready for it. So yeah, I'm super grateful for all those hard times. And the thing about you're saying your mom there driving 10,000 hours. Yeah, she's not like a pro race car driver, but she'll be able to drive now, get behind the wheel and not think about it, get to A to B and not remember changing gears. And, because it's intuitive for that level. But what I'm saying is that I really feel like it's important, as you've just touched on, that we do push ourselves if we want to succeed and excel in this world, this industry, that we are putting ourselves through those hoops as well and getting those reps in, just so that we're ready for it when we don't expect it. I'd rather learn it in an environment like that and be ready for it and be bulletproof, rather than turn up to a corporate event and something horrendous happens there, heaven forbid, and be ready for it and know how to adapt and stay in control, and not have to learn the lessons after those gigs. By the time I get to those events, thankfully, I've been ready for them because of every other hoop and hurdle that I've overcome.
Totally. One of the best examples that comes to mind would be television, which is you don't want to be doing something for the very, very first time, when you finally have your big debut, that's not the time to try a joke for the very, very first time. It's the time to lean on the thing that, that maybe got you there, and have a little bit of reliability. So, I love that advice. I wanted to talk a little bit more about kind of developing you. You mentioned Sherlock Holmes. You mentioned if Sherlock would do it, I would do it. If he wouldn't, then I wouldn't. Talk to me a little bit about character. I think everybody with mentalism specifically has to really address who they are to the audience. Is it spooky? Is it body language? What is it? But then you've taken it obviously a couple levels further than just making a decision of what's going on, and really allowed people to understand who you are as a character by playing the part, acting the part, dressing the part. Can you talk a little bit about that decision, that journey?
I mean, I think the decision, though, is very true to me. It's everything that I love. It's like I went out my way to fall in love with that stuff to then bring it back to this. Like, that has just always been who I was and who I am. And I feel like I'm very lucky that it lends itself so naturally. My background is in forensic investigation. I specialized in criminal profiling. All of that is legit, true story. Like, none of that's made up. So everything I've done in life has kind of led me towards this sort of crossover, so it works very well, thankfully. But yeah, I mean, with regards to body language or deduction, or I try and stay away from body language as much as I can, and more make it all deduction based stuff. And the fact that I now have an index of things that I can actually say when I see them on people and point it out, it just helps really sell that idea, that concept. But ultimately now, I respectfully don't care what people think it is or isn't. Now I really appreciate that it's the experience and time that they have with me and the impact that I can have on people within that time, whether it's in the Mirage where it's purely meant to be entertaining, whether it's in real life where where people come to see you and you can really deliver some type of message or leave them with some food for thought that really, means something to you. But just learning to be really authentic, and not trying or pretending to be anything anymore that isn't true to me. I think people really appreciate that when I'm on stage, I am just, I mean, the things that I say and the way that I act and behave is just who I am. And you couldn't fake that, because for that to be a character, you would have to have thought about or learned or acted out so much. Whereas I'm just responding to people as who I am now. And, the comedy, again, has always been a big part of me and my development. So I find it very easy to just find these moments with people. And again, that's what it really is now about, is me finding ways of really connecting with people. And much like watching a hypnotist, the participants, they become the stars of the show. And it's like, how do I then do that with what I'm doing so that these people are essentially co-stars in this overall experience?
I mean, that's certainly a helpful angle. I think a lot of us are trying to think of character as maybe something that's not somewhere within ourselves. And I think what you just said is, hey, I'm just me, as much as I possibly can be, and following the truths of what I've actually done in my life, what's actually led me here, and really being authentic about it. It's incredibly helpful. The one question I wanted to ask about that is, if somebody felt that they didn't have such such a clear history. I think it's a Steve Jobs quote, that you can align the dots going backwards, and you can't go in forwards, right? So looking back, you can say, now obviously who I am on stage is obvious. This was my past. This is what I love. But somebody who is looking forward, somebody who's maybe early in this, how would you encourage them to either go down a road or just start keeping their eyes open and their ears open for what character could be for them, and how to start, spending some time? Because I think recognizability, like the audience actually needs to understand who you are. And I think you do a great job of it. So what would somebody who's struggling with that, what could they do?
Well, thank you, first of all. You're very kind there. I watched just the other day, actually by chance, a Will Ferrell graduation speech at, I think it's South California University. And he talks about the fact that, not everyone here likes my comedy, and I'm okay with that. But he talks about in his early days, he was just throwing darts at the dartboard and taking risks and seeing what would land, and helping him navigate and just like find his direction. It's like a 25-minute talk on YouTube. Like, it's very easy to find. Just type in Will Ferrell graduation speech and it will pop up. But I think that is the best way to view it, is taking these risks and finding out what you enjoy doing, what resonates with people. And I think as magicians, we don't often take risks, or rather we take risks with the material rather than the way in which we deliver it. And I think that's a mistake. Like, I think find 2 or 3 tricks that you can perform without having to think about whatever they are, and then go out and just present them in a bunch of different ways, so that you're like, when I'm on stage at the Mirage, the last thing I'm thinking about are the methods or the tricks or the 80% of the backbone of the scripting. I know that's ingrained. That is like, with the greatest respect, pressing play. When I say pressing play, I'm still EQing the delivery of every line to make sure it fits that audience. My timing changes every night. So, because, like any conductor in front of an orchestra, you can feel the rhythm, and I'm playing off that as well. But because I'm not thinking about any of those things, I'm very present. And as a result, I'm connecting with people and picking up on things that are really happening and referencing them and tying it all together. So I think that is key, is that people, find 2 or 3 tricks that you don't need to think about doing, even if they're like tricks that you don't rate. Like, they don't need to be your favorite tricks or your best tricks that you don't need to think about performing. And then go out and present them in a bunch of different ways. And they're your darts. See where the darts land every time you throw them, and learn from that of what really connects with people and what do you enjoy, what resonates, and then do more of that with the harder tricks that you do, because you're then using one to lead the other. And at least you're not putting all this pressure on yourself at one time to have to think about both, because the tricks in that moment will take care of themselves. Right. And then really connect with people and then go from there.
That's such a great piece of advice. I think what happens to a lot of us is we're trying to be creative, and then we like do it all in one go. And we try to make one big new trick with a new premise and a new presentation. And then when we go on stage, we're a new person, and it doesn't work like that. And I think what you just said is really good. Take something that and try doing it a little different. Try acting mysterious. Try being hilarious. Try being ridiculous. Try being calm and slow. Try not delivering any jokes. Try delivering lots of jokes, playing with those things. And then when you want to try a more complicated trick, you can lean a little bit on the character that works and the styling that works.
Yeah, and the character that works will be the one that you enjoy being most. And it will be, everyone listening, it'll be a version of you that just accentuates and highlights aspects of your character, your personality and your true character in a way that really helps to then further accentuate the magic. And these things will go hand in hand. But really, it comes down to that authenticity with how you best connect with people in real life. And when you have that real connection, again, they buy into you, and therefore they buy into what it is you're doing, rather than the other way around and approaching and leading with a trick. Because when, we've all heard people say, oh, I saw this guy once who did a thing with a thing, and it's all about the thing. It's never about and the guy, right? All of a sudden you're deleted, you're forgotten about. And like, I think when you learn who you really are and you use that as the driving mechanism and the vehicle for every other story that you tell, that's when you have the biggest impact on people, and that's when you're remembered, and that's when your magic will hit hardest. It's as simple as that.
There's an insight that I'm seeing. It may not be right, but it's bouncing around my head, which is that, like, you need to actually be maybe confident isn't the right word, but like confident enough in being yourself in every situation, in regular situations, in getting on stage to be yourself and not being a different person, because you want to, like, the real answer is how you act in these situations, how you respond to these situations. So really it's about trying to shed all of these masks and trying to actually have the confidence to act the way you actually would act on that stage, and not trying to say like, how should I act? What would a comedian say here? But really having the guts to just say the thing that you would say.
Yeah. And that, I mean, it comes through trial and error and taking risks. And that's why I'm saying, start small and then build onto it. Don't feel like you need to tomorrow turn up and do a new 60-minute show. I've been there, and thankfully I only had to do that when I was in a place where I knew who I was. I knew how to write material, and but if you try and do it all, it's like going to the gym, right? If I take you to the gym today and I try and make you run 10 miles with me, like if you don't like run, if you've never run before, that's going to put you off doing those things, and you're going to stick to what you know, which is walking. Where it's like, you need to build up a muscle for this stuff, and it's not just one aspect. And the aspect of thinking it's just about the clever tricks. If you really want to perform for people, there's way more to it than just that. If you want it to, really mean something to those people, which I'll be honest with I want every audience to feel like it's a Christmas party with me on stage, and we're having the best time ever, and we're all connecting, and it feels like this has never happened before, and it's just for them. That's how I want it to feel every single time. I want it to be actually, Christmas party is wrong. I want it to feel like a rock concert, like with comedy. That is how I want it to feel. And when I hit the stage now, that is the vibe I am going for. Like, not off the bat. Like, I know when I come off the back of Shin, who's very, it's very intense and done beautifully and artistically to music. If I just then come out and bang right away, then it's going to jar. So I know how to transition and how to lead into that and how to control that and how to really own those moments. But yeah, that, again, it takes time, but trust me, it's worth it. I know we're saying stuff here that might seem, for some people, this might be really obvious. Maybe you're doing it already, and like, I love that and admire that. And some people, it might be like, whoa, that's way too much. And it's like, I'm not trying to overwhelm people with this. I'm just letting you know that it is possible. And trust me, if I can do it, anybody is capable of doing it, right? I was the shy kid in school who couldn't make eye contact with teachers, who dreaded having to talk in front of the class. And if I can go from that to where I am now, genuinely anyone can do it. You've just got to want to do it, and then you've just got to start small and build on it till eventually you're doing your magic in a way that is unlike anything people have seen before. And that's when you start standing out. And when you start standing out, that's when you get asked to come and perform on these bigger and bigger stages. And I mean, that's it. I mean, that is there's no real secret here. The real secret is like knowing who you are, being authentic, being yourself, not being an imitation of something people have seen before. And then that's when people are going to want to use you, because, you are the new shiny thing all of a sudden. And then the challenge, of course, is then how do you reinvent yourself in a way where you stay prevalent in people's minds? But that is the then fun part, when you know how to do it. But the first part, getting there, is what I would love everyone to find their own unique way of cracking first.
I love that advice, and I love how you've kind of walked people through what to do. And especially, what you said earlier, that a lot of the magic you invented happened in this tough situation, which is to say that, like, if you are stuck at this part of the process, the part where you are struggling to be yourself and find your character and whatever, that is one place, one part. And then once you get past that part, you're actually going to unlock quite a bit. Once you got a couple tricks you can do, once you kind of know who you are and how you respond to things, now it's fun. Now all of a sudden the floodgates really, really open up. So we've honed in on one, I think, stumbling block, one like bottleneck point. But I think that once you get past that, once you kind of know who you are and you kind of know what you're up to, then things really unlock and you get some fun. The next thing I wanted to talk about, we've spoken a little bit about, how you got here. We spoke about character. We spoke about the journey. There's a moment in time where either consciously or subconsciously, you kind of decided to get on big stages. I'm talking about TVs, I'm talking about touring shows, I'm talking about things like that. And maybe it was your decision. Maybe it kind of happened by happenstance, of just those things bubbling up and starting to exist. But I'd love to know, like, maybe from your perspective, was it an external thing? Was it an internal thing? How did you start getting from doing, I guess, what lots of magicians and mentalists are doing, their community things, small theaters, small event, you know, all these things, to now some of these really, really big opportunities and stages?
I mean, yeah, it was very much a conscious choice. I wrote on a piece of paper, I want to do, I wrote down I want to be in The Illusionist. I wrote down I want to perform in the Royal Variety Show. I wrote down an amount of money that I wanted to make in, the next 5-10 years. Like, I did all those things. And then it was like, cool, now I've thought about it. Now I'm going to go make it happen. And again, there's no real secret. I went out my way to craft performances that were, I mean, I don't want this to sound arrogant, but when you're up against Darren Brown in the UK, who is the master of all things mentalism and magic, in my opinion, your stuff needs to be as close to as good as that, not the same as that, but as close to as good as the quality of that as possible in your own unique styling, especially when I'm doing mentalism, which is exactly what he does. So it's like, I need to be so different and so good, the best I can possibly be in my own way, which needs to be better than pretty much everything else out there. And that's the goal. I'm not saying I am better than everything else out there. I'm saying the goal in my head was to try and be better than everything else out there. Because at least with that goal, you're going to set your own personal standards as high as possible. And you're going to create stuff rather than just settling for doing reinventions of things. You're going to find your own unique ways of then pushing yourself to answer those questions for you. And eventually, when I felt like I had performances that were at a level that, could rival the best of them out there, I then started sending the footage of that to the people that did book these shows and said, I'd love to be in your show. Here's what I'm capable of doing. How do we make this happen? Like, it's that to the point, and I feel like you get one shot at this. Like, I see people that go on America's Got Talent when they haven't really fully found who they are yet. You get one shot to do that. So make sure that when you do it, you're ready for it. Because some people think that they go on these shows and that's going to be the launch pad, and it's not. It's only the launch pad if you already have the thing, the product there. It doesn't create you. That is not the product, because as soon as that's done, they're already looking for people for the next season. So like, you had better have the product ready to sell at that point, because you get one chance to showcase it. And some people go on there hoping that showcase is going to be the thing. And unfortunately, like, for the most part, it is not. You need to have that package ready to go so that people know what they're buying into. And then that is the thing that just propels you there. And then you need to be able to, sustain that. But yeah, I feel like I sent my videos to these people when I was in a place where I was ready to do that and able to fulfill the promise of what I'm showing them on these videos that I sent them of performances at Wild Cabaret with these crazy rowdy audiences, and still being able to own the room there. And when they saw that proof, they were like, let's meet. And then it just, one thing led to the other, and we were off to the races. But yeah, it's just about, finding these places where you can get good enough that the people that do book these shows are going to want to use you. I mean, there's no secret there. And I really don't mean to sound arrogant when I do that. I mean, I worked really hard. My best friend, David Gerard, who in my opinion is the best magic thinker performer on the planet, he directs and co-writes everything that I do. And he's very brutally honest from a very loving place. If something's shit, he will say that shit, here's why it's shit, and here's 5 ways to fix it. He is brilliant for that. But yeah, I think you need to be honest with yourself and find someone who will be honest with you and help you really evolve and be the performer that you need to be. And everyone's capable of being that performer in their own way before you then reach out to these people, so that when they are aware of you, I feel like for the most part, you get one shot to really make an amazing first impression. So you want it to be the best that it can be.
I love that. There's a couple big pieces you said there. The first is you were talking about goals. And I think some people think that people who are crushing it at the top didn't sit down and write a lofty goal on a piece of paper once and hope that they would be able to reach there. Like, I know that you think that that's something that us small people who don't succeed do, but those big people who do succeed, they don't actually write their goals and hope they reach it. No, we all do the same thing. We all put something down on a piece of paper that is outside of our reach and crazy, and we laugh at it until we don't laugh at it anymore, and then we get it done. We put things down on that piece of paper that are big and that are scary, because you're going to get there. So please put things down. That's how this stuff works. So the first thing is like, it's good to hear that, you go through the same process as we should all be, which is deciding what we want and really being proactive and going for it. Yeah.
And let me just clarify, like, I know there's a book called The Secret where people talk about sending things out to the universe.
Yeah, not that.
I want to differentiate.
Not that.
No, I feel like that's one half of it. That's all about positive thinking. And I'm all for positive thinking. But positive thinking needs to lead to positive doing. It's all very well sitting there wishing you win the lottery, but if you don't go buy a ticket, it's never going to happen, right? You can think about it, but then you need to put the actions into place where you're actually doing these things. So by all means, like I did, write the list, but then not just think about it, work out the strategy to make it actually a reality. And again, it's trial and error. You're going to get something right, something's wrong. You're going to fail, but learn from those failures. Don't let them beat you down. Genuinely learn from the bad shows and go, what could I have done there that would have been different, better? What can improve that? From that meeting, what could I have done different? What would have made it better? So that next time you don't make the same mistakes again. And it's the same, whether it's a business meeting, whether it's a moment in a trick, like it's all about taking these risks as early as you're comfortable taking them, because the sooner you do, the quicker you're going to learn and the faster you'll be where you want to be.
Thank you for, by the way, mentioning that writing things down on a piece of paper is not the answer. It is part of the equation. It is setting your intentions, and then the being proactive is obviously the other half of
Ironically, having people write things down on a piece of paper is how I've made a career. So very funny how that comes full freaking circle at that
point. So yes, there are two parts to that equation. The first half is writing the thing down, and then the second half is actually being proactive and doing it. But the second thing that you mentioned there in terms of quality and getting to TV, which I'm going to just unpack in a different way, is that it's easy to be good and it's hard to be great. And I think your explanation of Darren Brown was a good example, which is for you to actually hold a candle anywhere, you really have to be really good, because the guy who is great is so great that by just being good, there's a big gap. There's like a big gap, and you got to make sure you got to make sure that you are up there in the great world. And I'll say, as a magician, it is not hard to be fine, and it is not hard to be good. It is not hard to be fine. It is real hard to be great. And that's one of the things that you're saying here is like, be great before you go chase every single TV appearance and stage appearance and whatever, because that extra work to go from being good, which probably everybody listening to this is good, to being great is going to, make that graph explode, help you really reach these places, instead of jumping for the opportunities while you're still good.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we've all heard it. People saying you are the best magician, the best mentalist, the best XYZ, whatever you want to label it, I've ever seen. And that's like, okay, cool. But respectfully, how many people have those audience members actually seen, right? So yeah, you're the best. It's like saying, this is the best show I've ever seen in Vegas. How many shows have you seen? One. Cool. So what you're saying is, it's the only show I've seen and it was a good one, right? That is without a frame of reference, right? But TV producers and stuff have a frame of reference. So this is the other thing as well. I'm not chasing being famous. Like, if anything, I would love to one day be respected, right? That is the ultimate goal. Rather than being famous, is to be respected in my mind. Your profile being raised is just part of having to sell tickets. So that has come as a byproduct of wanting to do live shows, right? The idea of being famous does nothing for me. Like, when I come off stage, if people speak to me, like, I never do tricks when I come off stage, but if people chat to me, I'm going to chat to them like a real person. Like, I really hope, if anything, I've surrounded myself in life with people who taught me the importance of not having an ego and never being a dick and just being a real person. And I really hope that, comes on stage. Obviously, I am a slightly amplified, my personality is amplified, right? For the sake of carrying it to the back of the room. But when I come off stage, I'm still myself. I'm still a little bit sarcastic, but in a loving way with a twinkle in my eye, so that people know that, I'm someone you would want to hang out with. But at the same time, like, none of this goes to the point where I feel like above anyone. And I think that's where the authenticity and the vulnerability comes into it, and is so key. that so many magicians want to, again, be like the all-powerful person, where it's like, no, people really want to connect and like get to know the real you. And I feel like that authenticity really, really helps. Finding your own way of being authentic. And it's easy because it's who you really are. And if you are the awkward, geeky guy who is very self-conscious, no one's playing that role right now. Like, go make that the way that you do this and really own that. You know, if you're the cool skateboarding guy, like find a cool way of incorporating that. And like, there's no right or wrong way of doing this. I do feel like whenever someone has taken a path though to a destination, it kind of shuts that path down for everyone else, right? That door is kind of closed, unfortunately, because it's been done. So it does get harder, but I mean, I look at that as, you know, a good challenge, because the people that I see who are excelling are the people who put the time in to really overcome those hurdles and find their own ways of achieving it. And that is why people ultimately stand out. So yeah, again, none of this is a secret. It's just people know this stuff. It's just knowing it and doing it are two very different things. And that's what I like when a spectator says, "Oh, I know how you do this one." It's like, cool, but knowing how you do it and being able to do it are two very different things, right? And it's getting over that, I think, in our mind. And it depends on what you want to achieve, right? Some people, I bet, will be happy forever performing locally in the UK. Like, weddings are a big thing. And great. You know what? If you only want to do weddings, amazing. Like, that is super admirable. You get to do what you love for people on a very special day and add to that memory.
It's literally amazing. It is literally, like, you made it. It's what you wanted. People to pay you money to do card tricks for a living. It's it. You know, that's literally it.
Exactly. But I just feel like then push yourself to be the best wedding performer that there is. Like, why would you not want to be that, you know? And I'm not saying that you will be, but at least with that mindset, you're going to be closer to that than just turning up and just going through the motions. Like, yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like if you could see my office here, I have notepads and paper and Post-its everywhere of ideas and things of what I want to say and perform and do. And it's that wonderful frustration of trying to find time to click them all together and be like, I know that there's something here in this canvas that is the wall behind my camera in my office. But yeah, I feel like that's for me what I want to achieve. And if you just want to perform at like a lower, I say lower level, I don't mean that, you know, disrespectfully. I mean, without having to do the TV stuff. And by the way, TV stuff in its own right is stressful. Touring for 10 months of the year away from friends, family, pets is stressful. And it's not always like, you know, the dream job that we wish it was. It's glamorous sometimes, but then most of the time you're in an airport or you're on a tour bus. So like, you know, there's pros and cons to all of this, and the grass isn't always greener. All I'm saying is that I hope, like, everyone doing any sort of magic, I'm all for people pushing it and it being the best that it can be in everyone's own weird and wonderful ways. That is the dream.
I love that. And I think you gave some good context there about, you know, even if you're not trying to achieve the highest of slots, you know, the highest of things, trying to be the best in your field, or at least putting the effort into being better and being proactive about this stuff is the secret. Like, that is the secret sauce. And to touch on what you said earlier, you know, it's come up plenty, you know, in this podcast where I'm asking advice, and it's the same stuff over and over again, right? Like, perform a lot, get better, think about it, work on it, get advice, keep doing it, you know, do bigger and bigger spaces. So, you know, up to a point, I'm like, how many more people can I ask the same question? But a lot of times there's a lot of things that come out of this that are really valuable. And I think one piece that was especially valuable for me was the timing of your proactivity to some of the bigger slots is important. Your timing to this proactivity is important, and paying your dues, so to speak, is not something that old magicians tell young magicians to stop them from charging lots of money and being in the industry. Paying your dues is something that you need to do. Learning your scales on guitar is something you need to do so you can rock on the solo, and performing in tough situations and establishing your character and being a little bit better than good before you blow the roof off of reaching out to every single TV and stage and whatever appearance that you can is a good idea. And I think that was a piece of minutia that I think really stuck with me, and I hope really sticks with people who are listening.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny you like using the guitar. Like, I know recently we went out to a night in Vegas and we played Guitar Hero, and we've all played Guitar Hero, and we all think that we're freaking rock stars, right? And then I brought out my guitar that Chloe bought me for Valentine's Day a few years ago, and I'm like, I want to play this again. I've never since high school played guitar properly, but I'm going to get lessons soon. And you're right, I'm going to start by learning the chords, and I'm going to learn, like, no point in my head right now am I thinking I'm going to get on stage and be the next big freaking rock star. I'm just like, I just want to learn how to do this and enjoy the process. Like, it doesn't need to be rushed, because if it's rushed, it's not going to be right. And then when you get these opportunities, if you blow them, like, heaven forbid, then, like, they don't come around again so easily. So you want them to be as perfect as possible. And like, one other thing, I think the big difference, this will have been said before, I'm very confident, that like an amateur practices till they get it right and a professional practices till they can't get it wrong. I don't know if I agree with the words amateur and professional, right? But just that the difference in mindset between practicing till you get it right and practicing until you can't get it wrong, like, is what I really love. And like, the material that I perform, especially like the stuff I'm doing nightly in the Mirage, like that, I've done that to the point where everything has gone wrong, or I have mentally rehearsed everything that could go wrong with it and come up with solutions so that I'm ready for the comeback or for the thing that saves it. I've got all of these things in my mind ready to go, because when I'm up on that stage, I need to be bulletproof. It's as simple as that. But I also think everyone listening should allow themselves permission to, I know what you're saying, practice until you get it right. Absolutely. But give yourself permission to try something brand new and accept before you do it, this is going to be really bad, and I'm going to learn a lot from that. And just give yourself permission to, obviously, don't go in and purposely try and make it be dreadful, but like, have an idea and be like, right, I want to go give this like a go and see what happens and learn from it, and just know it's not going to be great and accept that before you start, but know that you're going to learn a lot. And like, if you perform that, if you're doing close up, if you do that trick 10 times in a night, like when I go to the castle to learn new stuff, to work in new stuff, like on the Monday, show 1, the routine that I'll be doing on that first show compared to the Sunday, the final show, is going to be chalk and cheese, right? It's going to be 21 shows of development there that are going to put this thing through its paces. And by the end, I'll have been an idiot and I'll have wasted, like, never mind their time, my time, like turning up there and not building on it and learning and taking risks and trying different things. Like, if you just turn up and do the same thing over and over again safely, like, unless that thing is already so unique and different that people are going to want to see it, then and at that point, you've already taken risks to get it to that level. But like, if you're not pushing yourself, and that is the big thing to instill here, I think, is people giving themselves permission to take risks and know that it might not work exactly how you want it to. But that's okay, because you're going to learn from that how to make it happen. And the sooner you take those risks, the faster you're going to start to get ahead.
So we've spoken a ton about character. We've spoken about risk. We've spoken about, how to present yourself and going out there. One thing that we haven't spoken about that I think, your performances speak wonders is the actual quality of the material. And I think in Magic, there is, I guess, quite a bit of resources about the theory about what makes good magic. And I think mentalism, maybe there are resources and I'm just not well read, but generally speaking, I think people are trying to figure it out for themselves right now. And I think there's been this huge change, probably a Darren Brown influence change, where people are thinking a lot more about mentalism in terms of body language or influence, all of these different tools. I would love to know, in 2021, 2022, we've got internet educated people in our crowds, virtual or in person. What makes good mentalism? Is anything different now? Is anything like, is there anything that you think people are getting wrong or really getting right? What makes good mentalism right now?
I don't think anyone's getting anything wrong. I mean, if something's wrong, those are the people that end up breaking the pattern and stand out, right? Maybe wrong is the wrong word. Maybe not as good as it could be is a better way of looking at it, like things that could be improved. I mean, for virtual, obviously my big goal was to make as much of the wow moments happen on their side of the screen as possible, so that it wasn't just me going, look, and the one card the wrong way around is that, I didn't want it to be ever that. So like, I love pushing that. But for me, like, it's never been, obviously, Sherlock deduction. Everything is it's rooted in that deductive nature. But for me, it's genuinely all about like the people that what story do I want to tell? What topic do I want to talk about? What random, like as a comedian would, what thing have I seen happen observationally in real life that everyone can relate to? Can I use that in a really interesting way, as sort of like clickbait into like a routine? Like one of my openings, it was I don't know if I ended up doing this on Broadway. I did it on tour. I did it in one of my Edinburgh shows, where my opening line was, "In less than 60 seconds, you're going to find out whether or not you are currently sitting beside a psychopath." And it's like all of a sudden, like, holy shit, what is it? Like, there's so much in that it's like all of a sudden people are like invested, and like it fits, like, you know. Yeah, so it's my clickbait way of I don't do that with every routine, but just this idea of writing things in a compelling way where people are going to be like intrigued and want to listen. And, so I love finding those moments to lead into it. But really the bigger concept is, how can I best engage the people that I'm working with through this routine? So for me, it's never just about the trick or what is the process, like methodologically. It's always, what do I want that experience to be? How can I bring up one person, 20 people on stage, and how can we create something together that's never been experienced before by this room of people? And they're gonna remember it for the rest of their life. That is my starting point. Like, I write every show, because I've done the Edinburgh Festival, I write it like a reviewer, and I write what I want my dream review to say. And by thinking about like what that end result is and what people felt and what they saw, and even if it's just little bits and pieces, then, I can start to use that as, again, points on the map, and just start to figure out what it is I'm trying to create. And the thing I've learned with writing new 1-hour shows every year, like I remember having to write my second one. And after the last day of the last show, I sat down and went, oh shit, how do I write a better show than last year? And for 3 months, I struggled to write anything. And I realized the secret is to not try and write a better show. The key is to write a different show, is to write something completely different, and then take that different thing and make it as good as it can be. Because if you try and just build on what you've already done, if it's already perfect in delivery, then it's already there. So like to build on that is going to be impossible. But to sidestep and start again, you're giving yourself at least a fighting chance of creating something that can stand on its own and eventually be worked into being just as good. So that's the way I've always viewed that. But again, it's never about, my brain is never thinking too much about like the fake processes anymore. I mean, ultimately, I think the thing that maybe makes me massively now different to Darren is that I don't really care what they think it is. Like, I really don't mind if some people think it's psychic. Maybe I'm more concerned with that. I would probably dispel that immediately. But yeah, I don't mind if people think it's this or that. Like, as long as people are thoroughly entertained, obviously I want them ideally amazed or impressed by what it is I have done, so that they're, I'm not out to fool people. The fooling is like the foundation level of people should know how it works. But then it builds on from there of what is that experience. And I love people coming up being, oh, when you talked about this thing, or, oh, when you compared this and that, and how it made me think about my view of like that's the stuff that really fascinates me now. And that is way more interesting to me, rather than say it in your mind over and over again. Let me see your Adam's apple. Like, that for me was like 20 years ago. And like, again, Darren pioneered that. Like, I know other people have done it before him. Yes. Stuff like that. But like, Darren pioneered that. And now I'm just like, okay, that was his way of showing the process of mentalism, right? That's why he did that. It's the fake process, his process, or process rather, as he and Andy Nyman call it. Whereas for me, I want the process between the method and the reveal to be as entertaining a journey as possible. And whether that's through the storytelling, the jokes, the narrative, or what it is I'm making people do and the way that they're behaving and how I use that comedically, like, again, that's where the rock concert energy comes into it. And that for me is what it's more about now. And everything I come up with is different. It needs to be different. Like I just said, if you try and come up with something better, it's never, you're fighting against yourself here and your best work. So it's all about just being different. And, even people that know my work from a method point of view, I always take something like a sonata gimmick and I'm like, what has this never been used for before? And how can I turn it on its head? And I just love the challenge of seeing something differently. And, if you come up with something new, one or two, if no one's ever thought of it before, or if no one's doing it, there's two reasons why. One, they have thought of it and it's so shit that it's like, it's not worth doing. Or, and I also don't believe there's a bad idea. There's no such thing as a bad idea. There's either an idea that isn't fully fulfilled yet, or it's been used in the wrong place. There's no bad ideas. So hold on to everything. But either, someone's thought of it and they decided in their head that it was a bad idea, meaning it's not fully fleshed out yet, or you have really stumbled on something unique and different. And when you do that, no matter how small it is, allow that seed to really grow. I mean, for the main act I do, that I did in Illusionist, I do it now with Shin, is like a Q&A act. And that started with 2 pieces of paper and 2 golf pencils, and it lasted 4 minutes. And over the last 10 years, I have worked on that loads. It now lasts 25 minutes, that routine, and it has every good idea from like a mind reading point of view in it. So that when I do that routine, like that is, in my head, the most efficient way of reading as many minds as possible in the cleanest fashion. And that came from like a small, crazy idea that just over years of working it has grown into the thing that's taken me around the world.
There's a ton of things that you said there that are really, really helpful, from just following through on these ideas, which are going to be the real difference makers in making your mentalism strong, to even little tiny things which you shared, which I think make a huge difference, which is thinking about that hook, or you called it clickbait, or you can think about it as like marketing or title or whatever, that is going to get you into it, because the opposite is, I'm going to read your body language, or, in 1938, this guy did this, and trying to go the other way and saying like, hey, I'm actually trying to get these people to buy into this thing and trying to make it be interesting. These are people who've been scrolling through clickbait their entire, the last 10 years. I'm not going to inspire them by saying in 1932, Bill thing once said, no. You got to really get them. You got to say something that's going to get them interested and excited, and let them understand the context of what it is that you're talking about. The last thing that you mentioned there, which I wanted to touch on, is that you said you don't care what they, what they think, in terms of, you don't care if they think that it's mind reading or not, or you don't care how they think you're actually doing it. And I think, over time, my opinions on this have flipped and flopped and changed and all that. And I assume you have eventually arrived at the position that you're at right now. I'd love to know a little bit about your thinking on this. Like, if somebody leaves a show and they think that someone can do what you do, you've actually seen both sides of it. You've seen criminal profiling and what that actually looks like at its best. And then you've seen this fiction that we paint of what these things could look like. And there's this weird gray area that people may leave believing or not. I don't know. So how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It is like a dangerous game in some extent, because I remember one Edinburgh Festival show, a woman had flown to my show from India to help me go back with her to find her missing daughter. So like, that's heavy, right? Now, obviously, I made sure that she got the right help with people who were there in Edinburgh to make sure that she was well looked after. But yeah, for someone to have built that up in their mind to that point, that is heavy. And that's why, like, I never try and deal with any concepts especially on TV shows that are like too extreme or too leading or too without a resolution. I mean, like, Darren's had the luxury of being able to do like full length 1 hour specials or 2 hour specials where he can explore this and give closure at the end of it. But when I'm on a TV spot doing 6 minutes and I'm there to rock up and blow everyone away and get screams and, make it look as amazing as it can, it's tough then to close that down and be like, now remember, this is a theatrical environment, and this is because you don't want to step on that, especially when you're trying to promote your show and people coming to buy tickets and seeing it live and experiencing it live, which is the ultimate goal, right? Is to get people to experience this feeling in person, because there's nothing else like it when done properly. So yeah, I'm very conscious now to not give too much false fake methods for that very reason, whereby I don't want people thinking that these powers, quote unquote, can be used for anything more than what it is you're seeing me do with them right here and right now. And when I come off stage, I make a point of never really performing anything for anyone. I just feel like I would hope that I'm more interesting and as entertaining a person off stage just by talking to people without needing to rely on a trick to add a lie to. Because again, I'm all about, like, I love comedy, because comedy, you're connecting through apparent truths again, and this stuff we're trying to connect through deception, and it is tricky. And again, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. If people just think that they're coming to see a magic show or a mind reading show, and that it's mind reading's tricky because people think mind reading, it's like it's still the real type of magic, the type of magic that might still be real. Rather, it's like that's still, and I don't hate that, And over time, David, my friend David Gerard, and I have spoken about it. Like, he really hates people thinking it's real. Like David is someone who's good enough to be able to open his show with tossed out deck, do an amazing Q&A, and then close the show on the cups and balls. Like that is how David rolls. And I swear I say that, and there's going to be some people like, well, that would never work. And I can assure you, his audiences could watch him and 20 other performers of your choice, and I still think they would rate David top. And that might seem like high praise, but David is just amazing, and he just gets it and knows really how to be present and connect with people and just make sure everything hits super strongly. But he's always been against the idea of people thinking that it is real, and if people have come up to him before at the end, he's like, oh well, it's a trick, like it's just magic. And he kind of writes it off. But I also feel like when I'm building on this full Sherlock thing, I've always been a bit more delicate with it. And if people ask, I'm like, look, some of what I do is real deduction, and other parts of it are what's called mentalism. And mentalism is like the psychological side of magic, where there are all these psychological tricks that allow it to allow me to make it look like I am reading your mind. Obviously, I'm not. But a combination of that, and I kind of diffuse it that way. So I'm more skirting, around it than, but I just, and there are going to be some people that, some more seasoned performers than myself who are maybe the generation above who are all like, well, again, I say that, but there's Banachek who's like, I use my 5 known senses to create the illusion of the 6th. He's basically telling you, I've got some new scripting that I am working on that I don't want to share just yet, where I really diffuse this at the beginning in a very clever way. I hope it's clever and funny for moving forward, where I really set the tone for what it is people are about to see. Because again, no one wants to see a fake psychic, no one wants to see. But then if people can appreciate that mind reading is its own set of, or mentalism, because mind reading word is that's in the gray area, but mentalism is its own set of skills that allow these amazing things to be achieved, much like magic, then it's like it should still be, again, it comes down to the performer. The performer should still be entertaining enough. Here's the thing. If I can be as entertaining as a comedian with just a mic and talking to people, amazing. If I can add in a few tricks then to, perpetuate that experience, then even better, right? But what I'm saying is, as a performer, I hope that I'm good enough. Like even an illusionist, like Jeff Hobson and I were chatting one night on tour about what makes the grade of someone in illusionist to be one of the illusionist cast. And we kind of boiled it down to the fact that even on our bad nights, even the nights where pretty much nothing worked, we still made it so entertaining and enjoyable for the audience that they still had an amazing time. Like the tricks almost didn't matter. Now, obviously, no one wants to go see the magic show where everything goes wrong, unless, of course, you're in London, where that is now the show. But the point is that I think the thing that gets you to that next level is that you are so competent as a performer that, when shit hits the fan, you're still able to glean some gems from it that still make it an experience, that show the audience that you're not phased, you're not like, crumbling, you're not nervous, you're not like retreating, that you're owning it. Like there's a video I put on my Instagram of the other night where I had to wear a mask. Now, when I go into the audience, I wear a mask in the audience. And it's me the first night learning how to put a mask on over my mic. And I practiced it 20 times in rehearsal. And I'm like, on, off, easy, got it. When I try and get this mask off my face, I end up tangling it more and more and more to the point where it's like dangling from my face. And I just start riffing on the fact that my face now has a cape. And then I riffed on that. And then I went, oh, maybe I can wear it like backwards. And I start like wrapping this mask around the back of my head. And I'm like, don't, and everyone's applauding. I'm like, don't applaud. It's not CDC approved. And like all these lines just started coming. Because again, I'm not thinking about the tricks. I'm thinking about that moment. People have messaged me like you'll see on the thing, going, I was there that night that this happened. And it looked scripted, but it's like, it's not. I'm just like so comfortable now in that environment just to like pick up on, again, not that the magic all still worked that night and stuff, but yeah, I know we're getting way off topic, but again, my bigger thing is that I want those people to leave having been really entertained and just being like, here's the thing, I get changed quickly after the Mirage show. I put my hood up and I walk out the Mirage show in the middle of the crowd and I listen to the conversations and I listen to what people are saying. And here's the thing, my methods for the mentalism now, I feel are some of the best real-time methods for doing like Q&A, and they are very fooling. I've had mentalists say to me, I don't know when you got the peak. And it's like, good. And I feel like they wait for me to tell them, and I'm like, I'm not ready to share this information yet. This is my baby that I've worked on for 10 years. Like, I think short of Shin, who's seen it, 500 times, and Kevin James, who's watched it maybe, 400 times, and David, who helped me write bits of it, it's like no one knows how this thing works. So, and I try and keep it that way just because it is the one thing that I have that I feel really is my like pride and joy. Yeah, if they can't work it out, real people then shouldn't be able to work it out. And the conversations they have on the way out are more, and bear in mind, I'm revealing things like I have someone say hello to me, and based on their accent, I tell them where they grew up. So it's stuff like that. It's not like I'm doing very invasive stuff where I'm telling people how they should live their lives and what their future holds and all that stuff. I'm using apparent deductive techniques to get you to give me information about yourself and then telling you about yourself based on that. But they see that it's very much that. It's not like I could then come off stage and go like win the lottery. No one's thinking that based on, and if they say that, I've got jokes for all that stuff as well. But I'm not building it up in a way. I'm not touching subjects that are sensitive enough that would give people hope, false hope, that I can do that.
It's really helpful to know that, even though you're not losing sleep about how people are exactly, thinking about it, that you're also making sure, when they ask, to dance around it sensitively. And also it sounds like with the writing that you're doing, really trying to address it in some way up front. And I think it's this weird thing to juggle with, especially with mentalism, where, you put it best in your conversation, which is that, it's kind of nice that there's a little bit of mystery there still, to say, it's all tricks, really does flatten it. But also, there's this slippery slope of danger that it could go down of claiming that they're real. And I think, another really wonderful overlap is by treating the information, not saying that the information is trivial, but it's certainly not your mother's maiden name, the date that she died. It's stuff that somebody who is deducing could do, not somebody who is, predicting the future or sees the cosmos or whatever could do, but it's somebody who is deducing, which is not necessarily surface level, but certainly not stuff that is like unheard of information, for you to know, which at least helps a little bit on that journey. I know you're tight for time, so I have a couple other questions before we wrap today. The first question is about stage size and props. I think that magic, which I think you mentioned, sometimes benefits from variety and size and magnitude of props on stages. And I think mentalism, to speak generally, benefits from the negative space, both in the stuff that's on stage and like pauses and timing and, people, because it's just two individuals and a word or a thought or an idea or something. I'd love to know how you think about filling the space as somebody who clears off a stage before they go on, instead of filling it. How do you think of filling a stage?
I mean, I think that comes down from just knowing your character, having your personality defined and using that to connect and engage with people. I know I'm recapping everything I've said. It also comes down, though, to like in the Mirage show, we have amazing screens put in, like Shin invested in like the biggest, I think, LED screen walls that you can get for like our space. And it's just so people can see everything. So the stage does feel big. But yeah, I mean, I never want to look at my spectators as props, but I certainly want to look at the spectators as the co-stars. And it then does come down to that interaction and how I can make them act and behave in ways that are entertaining. Like, there's moments every show where I make someone do certain things and it looks like it was an accident on their part. And people always come up to me and go, "Oh, I was there the night that she did that thing." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah." And I'm like, could have been any night, because like I had to work really hard to make that happen in every show, right? But yeah, I think learning to elicit the personality of the person on stage with you as well as in the next level is how to get them involved. So not only working out who you are, but then the next level beyond that is working out how to use who you are to elicit other people to want to interact with you in a way that creates a small play happening on stage, almost you and them. Because people that just have someone pick a card, find it and go, "Is that it? Yeah, perfect." I know I'm being very flippant when I say that. There's usually more to it than that. But to not know who this person is, to not know a little bit about them, to not be able to buy into them as well, I think is a lost opportunity. And I feel like when people care about not just you on stage, but the person up there with you, even just a little to some extent, it makes it more meaningful to them. They want to care more about what's happening. Like, it's like, why do I care about that woman's mother's maiden name? Like I don't. Like, until you're invested in that person as well, then it matters. Because then you can almost imagine, like when we watch a movie, we don't watch the movie just to enjoy the character. We watch James Bond and imagine ourselves James Bond as well, right? So then it's like same for an audience member. When you know a bit more about the other person up there, you can then feel like you can imagine yourself in that position as well. And what would I have said, or what would I have done, or blah, 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 So I feel like getting to know the people that you actually and actively engage with for your benefit and for the benefit of the entire audience, that is super important. And that person's personality, or those individuals' personalities, can help fill that space. Because again, from a comedy background, if I can see guys stand on stage with just a microphone and nothing else and create the best experience ever, then as performers, as magical performers, we should be able to do at least that. And again, it was back to what I said with Illusionist. Even if nothing worked, you would still have that at least as like a base level of at least you can handle yourself and control yourself in a way where people are thoroughly entertained. And so, yeah, the trick should then build on that and be an added bonus is kind of how I look at it. Like, and I don't want that to appear like, again, flippant towards the magic, but I feel like I know how to conduct an audience now in a way that does get the energy right up, which is what Illusionist wanted when I would open the first half. Then after intermission, go back out and just get the audience on side. And, even in the show with Shin, it's like, I need to bring it down at points and bring it up. And I really love playing with the emotion of the room. And like, that is like a real fun every night, learning how to do that. And really, again, the word I used earlier was to be the conductor of the audience, essentially. But I feel like being able to use the emotion of the room is what fills that space, especially with mentalism, when there aren't things as visual to see in spectacles happening all the time. It's usually a word on a notepad here or there, or it's you saying something out loud. So I feel like being able to use that is what makes a difference, and that only comes down from a comfort level of your material and knowing who you are. And so this is all like a step-by-step process in a sense.
There's a couple things I want to unpack there because they relate to some of the things you said. The first thing is you were talking about the way to play bigger on these stages is by thinking of them. And, it makes sense. When you don't have any props, what does the cameraman focus on in this? When I watch your TV appearances, even for a morning show, even forget the cameraman, what is sticking with me is the look on the girl's face when you whispered whatever on earth it is you whisper into her ear and her jaw drops and says, "Don't you dare tell them that," or "Oh my goodness, how did you know that?" It's their face. It's them. That's what makes the actual thing interesting, not the guy going.
So just to bring this full circle as well, that's a woman that everyone cares about because they know her. So when she reacts like that, everyone watching cares. And it was from doing those morning shows with people that everyone cared about that I realized the importance of making sure everyone cares about the people on stage with you and feeling like a relatability and a familiarization with that person and being able to visualize yourself vicariously in that role through that person. So yes, so I'm glad that it came through from that. One thing I forgot to say with the Illusionist shows, where it was like some nights, from 1,000 up to the biggest we did was 8,500 seat stadium, is like, how do you ensure everyone feels a part of it? And it was a case of finding moments in every trick where I would have everyone do something or think of something, or like, I wanted everyone at your seat right now, grab your phone and do this, or everyone right now, reach into your pocket and pull out, or everyone do, everyone. So at some point in every routine, there was a moment where I would say, everyone do this thing so that everyone feels like they are a part of it and they could be picked, especially on that size and that scale. It was so important for me that everyone felt like they were in some way a part of the journey.
It's incredible advice. I once had an opportunity to do a show for some VIPs, ones that I was very, very nervous of. And after the event, the organizer said to me, "Hey, just so you know, I sent all of them a questionnaire asking what they all thought of the show." And I was like, "No, oh no." I was real nervous. But one thing that I learned from that questionnaire is one of the people was asked, it was a VIP show for 20 people. And I did it for 3 groups. And they asked, "What was your favorite part of the show?" And the answer that came over and over again was the part that I was in, not me, them, right? They filled out the survey and said their favorite part of the show was the part that they were in. Now, obviously that's the answer. But when we zoom out for a second and we think about, that a mentalism routine is 90% us going A, B, C, D, E, we miss the point that everybody's favorite part of the show is them. And we need to be highlighting the them, both the individual on stage who is making faces and people are caring about. And also, I love what you just said with everybody. And oh boy, does that apply, especially in virtual. I know we've been talking about, live, but in virtual, especially that concept of everybody, getting everybody in and everybody to feel that they're a part of it. Everyone's favorite part of the show is their part of the show, the part that they get to be in. So I think that really, really helps with direction, which is, it's not about how cool you look when you decide that they were thinking of a G and not a Q. It's about them and how you can get the attention and the focus on them, which I think really, really helps, especially with mentalism when we don't have much to work with, much to focus on. So I love that. Thank you for that. I guess the last big thing, there's some wrap up questions, but the last big thing I wanted to ask you about was what things are like right now at the Mirage. I know there was quite a time off of performing live. I know you are back performing live. I don't really care so much about COVID restrictions. I mean, you can mention them, but I'm more interested in what's it like, being back, having this energy. I spoke to a little while ago, Matt Franco, and one thing that really clicked with me, you mentioned at the beginning of this call about David Copperfield, this idea of like nightly, night after night, a rhythm, live energy, which is different than virtual. So talk to me about kind of what the return's been like and some fun things that people can think about or look forward to if they're coming.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the never taking for granted again a live audience. It definitely makes me way more thankful for being on that stage. I mean, the virtual shows did keep me fresh, thankfully, and got me thinking about a bunch of new material and new concepts and new jokes, stories. So, like, I'm very thankful for it. And obviously, virtual shows are still here, but yeah, I think the return just. The appreciation from the audience as well to just be back to real life, doing real life stuff is just like it goes hand in hand. We're all just very thankful of being there. I mean, yeah, there are restrictions. They're wearing masks. I now wear a mask when I go into the audience. Anyone I bring up on stage, they keep their mask on. But it's not the end of the world, I've written a bunch of jokes that I deliver at the start of the show about the masks, just to at least reference it. And thank everyone for wearing them during the show, just to make sure that everyone does keep it on during the show. And I find that comedy is the best way to get people on board with that. But no, I mean, nothing really now has changed. I feel like Vegas was the place people came to forget that COVID was a thing, I felt, because Vegas opened up again in July. Shows didn't come back until obviously this year, but like people have been coming here, gambling, etc., etc. So like, yeah, it's been a bit of a cesspit in my opinion, but we're on the other side of that now. And thankfully things are becoming more under control. But, Shin and I are doing everything we can to make it as safe for everybody as possible. And, I drive home the importance of keeping that mask on so that no one who, does believe in the masks as well. I know some people are sick of them. I get it. We're all sick of this situation, believe me. But, I don't want anyone sitting in that audience uncomfortable because the people around them are not wearing their mask. And so I really try and create an environment whereby we all we get it and we just do it to get on with the show type thing. So I feel like I've kind of cracked how to deliver that. And I don't like to, at the beginning, it was going to be very easy to have like the thermometer. So when people come up on stage, we check their temperature, like jokes about that. And I was just like, do you know what? People are so fucking sick of this. Let's not waste time doing that. People are coming here now to forget. People want to just come out and have an amazing time again. So I say the thing about the masks at the beginning because it's a mandate and they need to be on or we get in a shitload of trouble. So, so I drive that point home. But then beyond that, it is very much still safe. Shin, smarter than me, has taken out parts of his acts where he would have more audience interaction for the time being, unless it's essential, like in Dream Act and stuff. But I still... I feel like what I'm doing is very safe. We get tested every 2 days. Everyone has always come back negative. We're all vaccinated. We wear masks when we're meant to. We sanitize, because we don't want to get shut down. And
in terms of how it's felt, first of all, it's great to hear that things are safe, and it's good to hear just across the board, every magician is having to really take the safety into their own hands of their shows and their environment. So it's good to hear that you guys are really making it a priority. In terms of the magic, I work with a lot of magicians, and there's been this interesting vibe of returning back. There's been, the energy is crazy. It's incredible. There has been, it's just like riding a bike. Everything is just like it was. And then there's been, I'm rusty. They're rusty. Everyone's rusty. How have you felt in the return back? Has it felt crazy good, kind of weird? What's it been?
So I had like a tepid return last November when Piff invited me to come and do 15 minutes in the middle of his show. And that's when it was like only 200 people, no, not even 250 people maybe were allowed in the room, spread out. It was horrendous. Like you had to wear a mask the full time they did. It was no giving stuff out, no giving stuff back. But now I can do my actual material again. It's for me, it was just like riding a bike. And again, virtual shows kept me fresh and kept me, kept my flight time up with regards to ad-libbing and thinking on the spot about like talking about stuff and just being present. So for me, that was easy. And I think because I am so present still in the show, the energy was great. With Piff, because it was so spread out and only 50 people, it was tough for both of us. Like, I think it's fair to say, but we're back at full capacity and the energy is insane. Like, people are just so happy to be there and involved. And yeah, it has been amazing. Like, there's no doubt about it. I mean, obviously the first few nights, it was nerve wracking being like, what is this going to be like? But then after show 2, it was like, oh, like normal. And the new stuff that I had in the show, started finding new beats for that. So that was exciting. And then masks came back where the audience had to wear masks. There was a few nights of people not best pleased about it in the audience. And that's when I then wrote all the jokes about it to put that in to just soften that area and soften that blow. And ever since then, I mean, yeah, it's been epic. Seriously. I mean, the feedback's been amazing. So I can only go off of that. The standing ovations throughout the show, like as a gauge of like how much they're enjoying it. So yeah, it's a real joy. Like, don't get me wrong, I do like virtual shows because the fact that I can be doing a show and I can have a cat just sitting right here on my desk as I just held up for just you, no one else listening, and a dragon from this side. No, that was a lie for listeners. But the fact that I'm home and like I did 6 years on the road away from my pets and family and stuff, it's kind of nice to have been in one place, being able to do virtual. But the live energy, I mean, yeah, that seeing people clap on Zoom politely is never going to meet people screaming in real life, freaking out. So yeah, swings and roundabouts.
Totally. Well, good to hear that the return has been fun and the energy has been there. We are nearing towards the end of the episode where there's a handful of wrap-up questions that we ask each of the guests. The first is the endless chain. So in order to keep the podcast going on for eternity, each guest is asked to recommend another guest that would be really, really perfect for this show. Who would be a really, really good addition to the show, or really good for this kind of conversation?
Oh, well, the smartest person I know is David Gerard, who I mentioned already.
Perfect.
He's in San Francisco.
Perfect.
He's been the co-writer, director of every live show, every major TV appearance that I have done. If not him, I would throw into the mix Ken Weber, who wrote the book Maximum Entertainment, and see if he would.
That one I've already done. That one.
I'm just looking.
That's the catch. The catch is it has to be someone I haven't interviewed. So Ken I have, but David I haven't.
Oh,
so,
well, if you let David know that you've interviewed Ken, then that will put you in good standing, I promise. And the other person, who else? I mean, Jeff Hobson or David Williamson, right? Those two are...
David Williamson, of course, but Jeff Hobson I haven't yet, and that's a really great recommendation.
Yeah, so Jeff Hobson and Kevin James. Those are those are the guys I really look up to. So
great.
So yeah, that would be my top picks.
Love that. Thank you for those. The next question is about modern magic. So a lot has changed in the world of magic in the last year, 2 years. I used to say this question before COVID and it meant a different thing than it means now. But really just across the board, a lot has changed in magic. What's one thing in the world of magic right now that you like, and one thing going on in the world of magic right now that you don't like?
What do I like in magic? I think the thing I like is also the thing that I dislike, and that is there've been a lot of really creative ideas and people come out of COVID and new ways of approaching it, and it's been really amazing to see the guys thrive coming up with stuff. But then the flip side of that is it's really sad to see the people that just watch that and then steal those ideas and take them and do them. So it's like a real double-edged sword, unfortunately. But yeah, I think like the caliber of like releases is always, to come up with something new and amazing. There are some guys who are just really smart thinkers, like Henry Harris. Like I'd never been interested in Rubik's Cube stuff before this. And he very kindly sent me his Rubik's Cube, like basically range to look at and play with. I mean, it's not my cup of tea to perform any of that stuff, but it's amazing just to know how it works and what's possible, and just the attention to detail, the craftsmanship that's gone into that is like pretty encouraging. But then it's sad when someone uses it in a unique way, and then everyone else does it the same way, because again, they think if they own the trick, they've got the right to the presentation, which is heartbreaking. But what else? I've loved being in Vegas. I'm spoiled here that I can go see, like, in any night, 10 amazing magic shows, and like it's that. I was going to see Penn and Teller with David. When David was here, he came out here early June to help me with the first round of writing new stuff for the show. And then we went to see Penn and Teller, and they've always been good, but they so upped their game for their return. And it was just like amazing and wonderful to see that even though they're two guys who could just do their greatest hits forever, they're still pushing it and coming up with stuff that is just mind blowing. And again, that was the push for me last minute to be like, oh, I could do that thing where it's a prediction on a blackboard, or I could put in a bit more hard work now into the method and not just have the presentation be good, but the method be like impossible, or like even magicians have no idea how it works as well. So like that was really inspiring. So like I'm very spoiled for choice. I love that I get to hang out with Shin every night, who's just so creative and constantly tinkering with things. And so yeah, I think I'm just very lucky that my biggest love is that I'm surrounded by such amazing people who are always inspiring and always pushing me to challenge myself. Like Kevin James, when I went for lunch with him, he was the one that said, don't dare do a blackboard. What else have you got? And he was the one that pushed me to come up with what I'm actually doing now. So like, I'm very, very lucky and spoiled to be surrounded by these amazing people. And I just wish more people would believe in themselves enough to take the risks and come up with their own takes on stuff, rather than just do it the way it's been done by someone else.
And that is the difference maker, eh? That is it. That's the difference maker is doing something that is not the way that it's already been done before, and workshopping it until it actually shines like an absolute diamond. That is the answer. With that, we are getting towards the end of the episode, and the last thing is plugs. Talk to us about, number one, where people can find some of the magic that you're releasing, and then also where people can keep up to date with you, come see your shows, and see what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, magic-wise, I worked with Theory 11, released a bunch of stuff through them. I also have my own website, which is just psych, P-S-Y-C-H, -artist.com, and I've got a bunch of downloads on there that I put out last year. But yeah, I mean, the big thing I would push is people be safe and come to Vegas and see the show in real life and enjoy that, and just enjoy live entertainment again. So that's the biggest thing I would plug, is the show at the Mirage with Shin. So the show's called Limitless, every night 7:30, Mirage here, Las Vegas. That is it. That is the thing I'm most proud of right now. He and I have full creative control over that, came up with it together, and I am delighted with every second we get to spend on stage doing that show.
Well, Colin, I've learned I've seen a lot of your magic. It's awesome. I've watched a lot of your magic. It's awesome. This interview has been phenomenal, and it's really, really incredible to hear some of the fun that you're having there with Shin, and some of the fun that you're having or had and continue to have with virtual. So big thank you for joining us. This means the world. Thanks for spending the time.
And thank you everyone for spending time listening. And I swear, I really hope there was at least one nugget in there for everyone to have enjoyed and taken from this.
Well, there you have it. I hope you liked the episode, and I hope, of course, that you learned something. As always, these episodes are absolutely packed with information. Colin did not hold anything back. And with that, this is a free resource that I want people to be able to know about forever. So if you liked it, please tell a friend, post about it in your local Facebook group for your local magic club. Tell somebody, because just as much as it helps you, it can help somebody else. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next Thursday. Peace.